Good evening, multitudes, and welcome back to my series, Nobody Listened. Today we're going to take a detour from the regularly scheduled program, and instead of episode 3, I'm going to do episode 2B, or not 2B. But no, this is in response to a comment that I received on episode 2. Let me explain. Now, as it pertains to my musical journey over the past 20 years, in the last episode I talked about what I learned in terms of the fact that good songs alone were never enough. And I said some things like, good music nowadays doesn't get attention. It's attention that gets music heard. And I also said some things like, if I had to do it all over again, I'd put a little bit more effort into how I can get somebody's attention for 5 seconds and then build it from there. Well, viewer T. Santoriello apparently took umbrage with some of that. His comment was, yes, the attention economy. No thanks. I know this guy. He is a friend, a fellow artist, a fellow traveler, and we agree on a whole lot of stuff. And I know where you're coming from, my friend. So let's double click on that, shall we? I also mentioned last time that I'm an old timer. Now, are things that much different today than the old days? I'm not sure about that. So let me take you back to when I was in 7th grade, and I'm walking in the hallway, and there's an 8th grader, one of the cool kids, wearing a t-shirt with this scraggly-haired guy with bugged-out eyes and a flute. And underneath the picture, in old English lettering, it said, Jethro Tull. And I was like, what the hell is that? But I was intrigued, right? It's a cool kid. Must be something really cool. I think it was later that year in art class, our art teacher had a stack of album covers that I guess were representative of great art that he wanted to share with the class. And among those album covers was this. I don't know if you could see that, but that album cover creeped me out, but it also intrigued me too. And I'm like, oh, here's that Jethro Tull guy again. What is this? And somehow I knew I had to listen to this record. So lo and behold, a classmate of mine had a copy, and I borrowed it from him, and I immediately began a lifelong obsession with this band. Now, it's a love-hate relationship, but I could probably do a whole episode on Jethro Tull alone. But suffice to say, something got my attention other than the music. And in today's equivalent, that album cover is like a thumbnail. Now, around the same time period, there was another band that got my attention that I really wasn't familiar with. I probably heard their songs on the radio, but I didn't know it was them. But I had to get this record. And, you couldn't shoot a random spitball at a pep rally without a 70% chance of hitting somebody wearing a Led Zeppelin t-shirt back in those days. So I knew I had to explore this thing and see what I was missing. Now, in today's equivalent, that's kind of like social media, word of mouth type of thing. Now, sometimes it's just a snippet of a song or the hook or something that you hear in passing that catches your interest, and you make a mental note and you say, wow, I really need to check out that band. So it was 1979 and I'm watching TV, and this commercial for this new album by this new British band had just been released, and they were playing a little bit of the single in the background, and that hook hit me like a ton of bricks. And I said to myself, I gotta get this album. And I did, and it was this album. Bram Tchaikovsky, Strange Man, Changed Man. I know you're saying, I have no idea what the hell that is. Well, trust me, it's a great record. The song in question is called Girl of My Dreams. It is a power pop masterpiece. If you're interested in that genre, which is one of my top genres, the punky power pop that was happening in the late 70s into the early 80s, you got to check it out. It's fantastic. But there was another instance, probably around the same exact, it was like 1979, 1980, where I heard a piece of another new song on the radio. And I said to myself, whoa, that's different. I really have to check that out. And I went out and I bought the 45 of that song, and I loved both sides of that 45. So then I said, well, I got to get this album. And the album in question is this. Okay, Probably my second or third favorite album of all time. And now there's another album, kind of the same thing. I was watching late night TV, and I caught the tail end of a video for some obscure, weird band from the South that I'd never heard of, but the hook, immediately stuck in my head, and I'm like, well, I got to check these guys out too. So I'm pretty sure that I was the first kid on my block to have a copy of this. That's REM, Murmur, a masterpiece, probably also my second or third favorite album of all time. And I would never have discovered these three albums had I not heard that little snippet of music that caught my attention. And in today's equivalent, that would be kind of like the YouTube short or the TikTok video. Now, what is different nowadays is that there's exponentially more music out there, more than anybody could listen to, and there's many, many more ways of delivering that music. Now, you don't have to be a musician to create a piece of music nowadays. You just need the right generative AI tool or software. Now, is that good music? Is it valuable music? Does it come from the heart? If you ask me, I'd say no, but I'm biased here. But the fact is, it really bothers me when I see that some AI slop, which is pure garbage, has millions of views, where something that I've done, for example, that comes from the heart and is real human music, gets a couple dozen views. Well, obviously, somebody has won the attention war, and it ain't me. Now, I'm not suggesting that I change my art to do something more commercially viable or attention-getting. That would kind of go against my integrity as an artist, and I'd rather keep my art pure. And but there's, and I don't think the answer is chase attention at all costs either. I think there's a middle ground. You can't ignore the attention economy completely if you want to have some success or notoriety, as a songwriter or a musician these days. So you don't change what you make, but you do have to think about, how does somebody experience it for the first time? So, Mr. Santoriello, my friend, I'm with you. I don't want to play the game. I don't want to game the system. I don't want to whore myself out any more than you do. But the fact remains, not paying any attention to how people discover my music does not protect my music. It makes it invisible. And that's what's happened. So, and that segues right into episode 3 coming up, where next time we're going to talk about why uploading is not the same as promoting. So in the meantime, let's keep the conversation going. If anybody out there, has any ideas or has a thoughtful comment, then I will promise you a thoughtful response. And always remember, let's not bicker and argue about who killed who. Until next time, over and out. See ya on the next episode. Bye.